One of my favorites is, it's got to be the book of Jonah in the Old Testament. Amazing book. Short book, very interesting. So Jonah was this man that God called. God gave a specific message and he said, go and tell these people this message. The people that he was meant to tell it to were very evil people. So just picture someone telling you to go and tell ISIS that God loves them. Pretty sure many of us won't want to do it. And that's exactly what Jonah did. So Jonah said, nah, I'm not gonna do that. So he went the other way and he basically ran in the opposite direction. He jumps on this boat and he travels to the other side of where he was meant to go. On that trip, God sends a storm and the people on the boat start panicking for their lives. They start throwing everything off and Jonah's sound asleep. Does it remind you of anyone? And then they go to the bottom and they say, hey, this guy's sleeping. He must be the reason why this storm. So he starts telling everyone, they start telling everyone to pray to their God. Everyone prays to their false God and nothing happens. And then Jonah says, look guys, it's my fault, throw me off the boat. So they end up lobbing him off the boat and the storm stops. When Jonah falls into the water, a great fish comes. Some people say it was a whale. I would like to say it was a great white shark. Swallows him whole and Jonah ends up in the belly of this fish. That's when he comes to the realization that you can't run from God, okay? So you can't run from God, and when God calls you to do something, you gotta do it, otherwise you end up in the belly of the fish, the great white. So anyway, eventually Jonah leaves. He doesn't die. God rescues him from the belly of the fish and he ends up on the seashore and he goes and tells these people. So he walks up to ISIS and he says, hey, listen guys, God is telling you to turn from your sin, stop killing people and do God's work. And they say, oh no, God, sorry, forgive us, forgive us. And Jonah climbs to the top of this mountain and he looks down and he's waiting for God to destroy them with fire, and God doesn't destroy them. He forgives them. And then Jonah says, oh God, I knew you were such a merciful God. I knew you were gonna do this, and he's really angry. So then God causes a worm to eat the tree that was giving him shade. And the moral of the story is you can't run from God's calling. And when God tells you to do something, you need to do it or you're gonna end up in a bad place, as Jonah did. And not just that, never forget where God took you from. And don't look at others and say, oh, how evil you are, right? Because God rescues us from bad things and he can also rescue anybody, including ISIS.
The story where the guy fell out the window, that's in Acts 20 verse 9. So the Apostle Paul was in Troas. And while he was speaking, he just started preaching to them. And he went for way too long. And it was getting close to midnight. And there was a guy, a very young guy, just chilling nearby the window. And then he started falling asleep because Paul was talking too much. And then he fell off the window and then he died. But they picked him up, saw that he was dead. And then Paul just came and checked him and he was like, no, he's living. And then he lived. And then afterwards, Paul spoke even more until the next morning and then he departed to Ephesus, I think. So the moral of the story here is don't sit nearby a window when there's a preacher that takes too long. Just sit on a chair like a normal person, please. Even on the floor would be fine, you wouldn't have died.
One of my favorite stories, because I have a lot, is John 8, which is the adulterous woman. Okay, so the story goes like this. The Pharisees brought a woman caught in adultery to Jesus one time, and they said to him, with this sin, a woman's meant to be stoned to death. And then they asked Jesus, what do you say we should do with this woman? He said to them, let he has no sin, cast the first stone. And then Jesus doesn't say anything. He just starts writing on the ground. As the story progresses, the oldest to the youngest, the Pharisees or the men that are there, start leaving. It suggests that he's writing down sins or he's sort of calling them out, so they start leaving one by one. So from the oldest, obviously, because the older you are, the more sins you have, to the youngest, obviously you have less sins, but we all have sins basically. And then he said to the woman, he said, where are your accusers? And the lady says, like, they're not here. And then Jesus says, well, I don't condemn you either. And then he tells her to sin no more and to get up and to live her life again, and that she's forgiven. The moral to that story is, which I love, is that God's grace is amazing. God forgives us at any stage of our life, and even in this case, you know, she was meant to be put to death, but he restored her and he loved on her, and he also told her not to sin anymore and to continue her journey, and she ended up being one of Jesus' closest followers. Amazing story.
Thanks for watching, guys. We hope you are blessed. Don't forget to subscribe, share and like down below.